So like 10 or
that
Good afternoon and welcome to the Alternative Assessment Panel meeting of June 26, 2008. This meeting is hereby called to order. Please refrain from talking among yourselves during the meeting and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. The purpose of the Alternative Assessment Panel is to hear appeals from the decisions of the design review boards. This is a de novo hearing. Any decision which may be rendered today will be based solely on the information presented at this meeting. The decision of the Alternatives Assessment Panel will be the final decision on the project. Thus, any appellant and applicant should present all the evidence which he or she may wish the panel to consider. The Alternative Assessment Panel may sustain, modify, or overturn the decision of the originating design review board. Possible Alternatives Assessment Panel decisions are as follows: approve with conditions; deny, continue to another AAP meeting for additional information. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting and possible decisions is available at the table by the front door. Any decision of the panel may be appealed to the City Council by filing a notice of appeal and appeal fee with the Permit Services Center during normal business hours within 7 days of the panel decision. The appeal fee is presently $550. The public meeting will be conducted in the following manner. Staff will present a brief overview of the project, including the action taken by the Design Review Board. Then, the appellant or the applicant's authorized representative will be given 10 minutes to present his or her reasons for the appeal. Then, the applicant or the applicant's authorized representative, if not the appellant, will be given 10 minutes to describe his or her project. Then, any others wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to the project will be asked to come forward and provide testimony. Speakers from the public will be limited to 5 minutes each. Next, the applicant, if not the appellant, will be provided 5 minutes for rebuttal comments. Then the appellant will be provided 5 minutes for rebuttal comments. After all the speakers have made their presentations, the public portion of the matter will be closed, underlined. No further testimony will be taken from any member of the public, the appellant, applicant, or the staff unless specific questions are directed by members of the panel or unless the chairperson reopens the public comment period of the meeting. Once the public portion of the meeting is closed, members of the panel will discuss the particular matter and make a decision. Anyone who wishes to speak, including the appellant and applicant, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker's cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present or speak on the specific item as indicated. If you are speaking for, against, or if your comments are neutral towards the project, please note this on your speaker's card. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings, if any. Okay.
Good afternoon.
Actually, we need roll call first.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Was that not on the?
So I have to move now to the agenda.
Yes.
Next, we have the report regarding the posting of the agenda. Thank you, Roger.
How about actually the roll call first?
Okay.
Roll call. Mr. Aliano. Mr. Ellis.
Present.
Mr. Yu.
Here.
Ms. Friedman.
Here.
Mr. Zarifi.
Here.
Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside of City Hall at or before 3 p.m. on June 19th of 2008.
So our one and only case is case 2-PDR-2008-008-AAP. The address is 3761 Santa Carlotta Street.
Actually, I'd like to interject one more time. We need a temporary chair for the meeting.
Okay. Does someone want to make a...
The chair needs to be from Board 2.
I'll move Ms. Friedman as the chair of this assessment panel.
Second.
A motion was made to make Ms. Friedman the chairman pro tem of the meeting. Roll call. Mr. Ellis.
Yes.
Mr. Aliano.
Yes.
Mr. Yu.
Yes.
Mr. Zarifian.
Yes.
And Ms. Friedman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Chairperson, members of the board. The next project before you with the case number 2PDR 2008-008 AAP located at 3761 Santa Carlotta Avenue was reviewed by the board on May 8, 2008. The project was unanimously approved with one condition and one consideration. I'm going to give a brief presentation, but will be available for any question that might arise. The project is basically addition to the first floor of an existing single-story, single-family residence, a new second story, demolition of the existing detached garage and addition of a new attached garage. These are some of the board discussions which led to the project approval. The subject house and the lots are located at the lowest level in relation to lots on both Boston Avenue and Santa Carlota. The existing setback and the footprint of the building remains relatively unchanged. The only windows from the proposed second floor facing the neighboring properties are located in 2 proposed bathrooms. Basis for appeals are as follows. The appellants have stated that the design review board has failed to take into account 2 sections contained in the Glendale Municipal Code when approving the project. Section 30.47.010B and G, Section 30.47020F5. Provision B is to enhance the beauty, livability, and prosperity of the community. The project appeared to satisfy this requirement by proposing volumetric and material variations which have created horizontal and vertical modulations. Section G, Provision G is to ensure single-family design which is compatible with the character inherent within the neighborhood. This is addressed through, among other design proposals, matching the new roof with the existing, keeping the footprint and the location of the building the same, and even though a second story is proposed, it is modest in scale and it is located so that its impact on the streetscape and the neighboring properties is minimal. Section 30.47.020 addresses the type of the project subject to and exempt from design review procedure and requirement. This project was reviewed by the board, therefore the basic element of this section has been satisfied. The City of Glendale currently has no view protection regulations, and Section 30.47.030I1 allows the design review board to consider alternative arrangements of windows or site layout to address privacy concerns, but prevents the board from prohibiting construction with a reasonable number of size and windows based on privacy alone. Staff recommends approval of the project with the same condition and consideration set by the board on approval of the project, and the draft record of decision will remain as previously. This concludes my presentation. I am available for any questions.
Can you explain for the board members who weren't here last time, unless they don't need the explanation of the condition and the considerations?
The condition was to raise the bathroom windows higher, and the consideration was to simplify the second story.
Actually, Jaleh, why don't you point out where the windows are?
The windows are here, the bathroom, and if you look...
So the elevation is...
Okay, and the elevation there, yes. So it's actually as previously, the applicant has not made changes, but they are going to be raised to the higher level. That's the condition. And if we look at this is the bathroom where it faces the neighboring properties.
The second one about simplifying the second floor? What is?
Yeah, that was...
This was a comment from one of our board members. Would you like to explain?
Yeah, I think probably you can see there the roof condition here. This kind of expresses the staircase, and to make it compatible with the simple roof conditions of the neighboring buildings, it was suggested that maybe this roof can join the larger roof and be a simpler, instead of having one roof trellis and the larger roof, maybe trellis can be omitted and be taken over by the larger roof.
Any other questions for staff?
I do. You mentioned it's the lowest point on both Boston and Santa Carla?
Right.
Because I was looking at this, the photo survey kind of looked That's a pretty horizontal street.
Yeah, it isn't really.
So as the water flow comes down the hill, Boston's
Exactly.
easy, but it's also going east to west, so it's the lowest pad on that
Right.
street?
The two streets come down and join,
Right.
slope down to the location of
Got
the subject site.
There is a cross-section that shows the house to the rear, which I'm presuming is the appellant. Is there a cross-section that shows the house to the east? It
The
shows the
only
relationship to that one?
The only section we have is that.
Yeah, that's the house to the north. Is there one that shows house to the east? No.
We don't
It
have.
doesn't show that relationship.
Isn't that what this one is?
Oh, no, that's the east garage. Oh, maybe that is. Is that? No, maybe you're right.
This
I'm
is
looking up here on the wall, I don't see that one up here. Why don't I see that one up here?
Isn't that one against this one? Here? Which would be it's sloping the other way.
Which page are you on, A9?
Because it shows a 4-foot difference.
They don't, but then it doesn't line up. It's sloping the other direction. Right, that's what I'm trying to work.
Yes,
You have. Here, you want to stick it up over? That's one more. Put it on this one. Let's go over here. Put it over here. I'll help you here. That's your couple of pins. Because if that's true, that lot's lower than this lot. And so now I'm a little confused on the geography.
It's cut in the front side.
Oh, this is the garage.
Is that the existing?
It's the existing garage.
Existing garage?
Yes.
So that's their backyard?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
No, that's the neighbor's garage, isn't it?
That's,
I don't know.
There's a property line between them.
This would be a question for the applicant. Yeah, there's a property line right there.
yeah, that's the property line, you're right. That
Yeah.
must be
That would be the neighbor to
To
the
the east. Because it just says section, it doesn't quite say.
This slopes in the wrong direction according to this.
So that, yeah.
Because there's an existing garage right there in the neighbor. I'm assuming
And they're looking at the picture, can you tell that?
I'm not sure.
This is going across here, this roof is running this way, but in that drawing is run.
No, this would be the
Yeah,
house.
you're right. It's going the wrong
It's
way.
not a garage, yeah, it's not a garage.
This may be something we may ask the applicant to clarify.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
But I was confused too when they're talking about the lowest point.
Yeah, that's what was confusing me also. Oh, I got one other question.
Yeah, sure.
The windows on the existing house are currently vinyl, and they're asking, they're reusing some of the windows, so, and then to match vinyl all around?
Yeah, but they have a special, they designed their vinyl, or they propose the design of the vinyl in a way that the city agreed, because vinyl is not a material that city usually
Right.
accepts. But they have proposed a design which enhance the look of the building, and we believe
Okay.
actually.
They're replacing all the windows on the,
Yes.
yeah, okay. Thank you.
Do we have any, a sample of that window design?
No, it's just
Just
what
what's
you
drawn?
see on elevation, unfortunately. Don't have any.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay.
I would like to give out to you all the letters that we received at the last hearing.
Oh, great, thank you.
Helen Foster? State your name again for the record, please.
Helen Foster. My husband is supposed to be speaking today, and he is working out of the country at the moment, so I'm here in his place. The project house sits actually about 5 feet higher to the house on the east in the elevation, and I have 2 pictures here that show you. And with these mid-century modern homes, if this proposed second story goes up, it will, with the arched angle windows, this massive second story, these mid-century modern homes have very little light because they all come through these beautiful big windows at the top of our house, and it will really affect the light that the neighboring property has. And in my notes, I wrote that the project house sits 5 to 6 feet higher than the home directly to the east, 3757 Santa Carlotta. The project house already looks like a 2-story home due to the tiered lot. If the project home increases in height to 25 feet, it will tower over the neighbor's home and appear to be not 2, but 3 stories high. Design Review Board should also note that the neighbors who live next door to this project house are currently abroad in Korea and are unaware of this project. The massive difference in height between properties directly neighboring the project house is not compatible with the neighborhood, and photo 1 shows that. At least 10% of the project home hillside lot is currently unusable. This was pointed out by the subject property's architect in the last design review when the neighborhood requested that the house remain a single story. Since 750 to 1,000 square feet sits on a hillside between the properties with an easement, if this is taken into account, the project home's FAR ratio would violate code. Since the lot's fenced perimeter does not currently include this square footage, the proposed remodel may appear good and within code on paper, but it's massive in scale when you realize this in person at the project site. We argue that this unusable square footage should be taken into consideration and the FAR ratio reduced accordingly. It's not compatible with the neighborhood. And I can come up and show you on the photos, or take one back and show you where the unusable, their portion of the lot and our portion of the lot. And we know this because when we recently purchased the home next year, it was disclosed in our escrow papers that this portion, this easement, is unusable square footage. So this is the project properties, the back of their fence. Their square footage of their lot continues in a diagonal line back here. So this is all unusable sloped square footage. And we went out there and measured, and from our, kind of rough measurements, it's between 750 and 1,000 square feet of unusable lot. Reducing the setback next to the garage will only make the home seem more massive and overpowering on the lot, especially since the lot is only 31 feet wide facing Santa Carlotta Avenue. At a time of anti-mansionization, we should be increasing setbacks, not decreasing them. We disagree with the planner that the setback reduction is compatible. We say it's not compatible with the neighborhood. As stated in my previous line item, the lot is very narrow at the front. Currently, the break between the detached garage and house helps minimize scale. If an addition between the house and garage is built and a second story added, the home will completely dwarf the lot in terms of mass and scale and the surrounding homes. It's not compatible, and it'll also break up. You won't be able to see the lovely Verdugo Mountains behind it. The surrounding homes are modest in size, with an average being 1,500 square feet, an FAR ratio of 0.22, and a lot size of 7,149 square feet. In fact, only one home within 300 feet exceeds 2,000 square feet. Normally, a 2,700 square foot home would not seem large, but in our modest neighborhood, it is. The project home will be on average 75% larger than the surrounding homes. In addition, the surrounding homes are almost exclusively single-story, making this home with a proposed massive height of 25 feet out of place and incompatible with the surrounding homes. It's not compatible with the neighborhood. Vinyl windows are completely out of character with a mid-century modern home. An attempt to hide the vinyl with wood molding is not an answer. Since many of the windows are sliders, there will be a vertical break between the fixed and movable window. How did they propose to address this issue? A vertical piece of wood molding at the break would only highlight the issue, especially when the windows are open. Hiding vinyl windows with wood, in my opinion, is similar to covering foam molding with stucco. I, for one, am not happy with the quality of materials and suggest design review encourage wood or aluminum windows which are true to the mid-century modern style. It was recently brought to my attention that just an hour prior to the previous initial design review board regarding this project, the planning associate, Jale Kiazand, visited a neighbor that had opposed the project in writing. Jale tried to convince my neighbor that she and her husband were mistaken and confused regarding the project house and the proposed remodel. As a longtime tax-paying resident of Glendale, I found this very unethical and disturbing and hope this sort of thing doesn't happen in the future. One city representative's actions has reflected poorly on what should be a fair and unbiased process. My husband and I request that the Design Review Board consider and apply the following. We would like the applicant to provide an elevation drawing of the project home and neighboring homes and an elevation study of the neighborhood prior to any further approval of this project. This would include an elevation study with the northerly properties. Due to the dramatic height difference and the impact this will have on all the surrounding homes, we request that the applicant install story poles so design review and the neighborhood can see the tremendous impact this will have on surrounding homes prior to any further approval of this project. Based on the comments above, we would like design review to encourage the applicant to dramatically scale back the massing of this project in order to be compatible with the neighborhood. We request that the applicant revisit the second-story height and redesign the home with a single story. If not, if they can bring it down a couple feet, that would be great. Having a 25-foot roof height while maintaining vaulted ceilings in the second story that adds such overbearing massing to this modest neighborhood, not to mention the negative effect this will have on the neighboring homes, needs to be revisited in the design. We would prefer the roof lines to change and have the size and mass come down several feet. We request that the Design Review Board, too, revisit the property site, and once you review the easement and unusable portion of the lot, reduce the FAR size accordingly. I back up to that lot. I mean, it's the back of my house. I can't build on that portion either. I can't really use it. It's unusable space. Due to the unusable slope, this seems reasonable. After such decision is made, we request that the applicants provide new drawings that represent the new FAR ratio. In closing, we humbly request that the Design Review Board to please take into consideration that if this project goes through as currently proposed, my home, my neighbor Mrs. Kim's home, and the home of the family who is currently in Korea will suffer. We will lose our beautiful mountain views, our privacy, and in this time of recession, our precious property value. In addition, this remodel will make our homes truly incompatible with our neighborhood. And in the place of our mountain vistas, we will look at the back of a stucco box and into vinyl windows that dismiss our privacy as they will look into our walls of glass at the rear of our homes. Please see photos 3 and 4. I also have to add that the balcony that's in the front of this project will be in place of what was my view. And if the second story is allowed, I would like the balcony to be reconsidered because I just don't think it's fair for a neighbor to take something and have it for themselves at the expense of my property.
Okay, your time is up, so if you can finish up.
I have a letter from a neighbor that I was going to read later. Should I read it during comments?
Yeah, you're out of time now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vicki Barberi?
Is it this one?
Oh, no, he's the appellant, so her address is on their letter. I thought.
Is it this one?
But not anything wrong.
Kim one is
No, she's up here.
Oh, she's this one.
This is the backyard from that one.
Yes.
I got you. But this one
The Foster
is this one. Got you. I see.
I think that.
Do you all have questions for the appellant? Or
Maybe just a quick
continue?
clarification, just to be sure that we're correct. Can you just show which one your house is?
On this side plan here, this is the project. site?
I'm here.
Is it this one?
No, that will.
Are you right on the corner?
No, I'm right here.
You're the
So
corner.
our houses are kind of like at a V looking at their home.
And then the Kim one is this one then?
Yeah, this is the
Got
Kim's
ya,
home.
okay.
And then,
This is the one that you're saying that the person is in Korea
yeah,
now?
they're in Korea, and they have windows right here.
Right.
And then this is my living room, looking over
That's
the...
you're looking out into
So it's
that.
this space right here then?
Right.
And they have a whole bay of windows that look right over the side.
Okay.
Let me ask you one other quick question. On this view, is your property line this fence here?
No, this is the Kim's property
That's
line,
their-
and mine kind of runs like this.
So it's someplace in the middle of that. I'm trying to look at,
They've actually, they came out and surveyed it, so it's pretty clear with a staple, and there's like a stake back here somewhere, it comes diagonal.
and this is the fence
And this is the fence
that's
of the
on their
project.
property, which they're talking about removing here.
Right.
The fence, the wood fence.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Vicky Barbieri. We are the architect for this project. There have been so many comments that it's hard to go over them. But if you allow me, I would like to approach the board. I'd like to go over some of the issues I think they are the most important. Clarify the reference to, in the site plan, what the lady called an easement, usable or no usable. In reference to the elevations, both streets fall lines. Of course, this house is going to be lower to the left, higher to the right, or vice versa, because this is a kind of hilly area. Then some of the sections I think are very important in reference to the height of the second story, in reference to the roof of the second story. The roof are no more than following the existing roof of the house. Something that we really worry when we do these additions and remodelings is to try to add or remodel whatever we do as the essence of the existing house to keep the architecture, to keep the spirit. Modifying that angle, it definitely will show the addition as an addition. In reference that we can lower that height, we already put the top of the plate at 7.5 instead of the normal 8 to try to make it as low as possible. In reference to have exposed ceilings, we have to have that line of roof anyway. If we have a ceiling horizontal inside the rooms or we leave it exposed, in reality it's exactly the same situation or the same conclusion. Can I approach?
Yes, please. There is a pointer if you need it.
There, in front of.
Oh, she's got
What I thought it was the most important sheet is the one that has been put in the bottom. I think this is a picture that is provided by the computer and where it shows the location of each of the properties and the houses or improvements around this property. We have been able to scale the distance of the addition to each of these other houses next to it, and the natural trees that surround all these properties. Specifically, as you see here, this is, if you go over, I imagine you did, you will see that this is a barrier of greeneries. I couldn't even see the house over this side. Another thing is this house is following in this direction. What I mean, this house is higher than this is going to be higher to the next one, and vice versa. In reference to this Santa Carlota, of course this house is above this one is above the next one, and consequently it's all next to the other one. It's not something that is so special about this lot in reference to the geography of the area. Talking about height, we have this property legally surveyed. Then it's not something that we measure or we estimate. It has been legally done. We have it here. The elevation is 120. The elevation of this house is 108. It had 12 feet difference in between the level of these houses and the level of this client house. And then, of course, this client house over this house is another 4 feet. Then the neighborhood in itself has a variation in verticality that you can see if you approach. We didn't here a picture elevation over one street and over the other street, and you can see what I'm describing. Then the different elevation is not something that surprises us. I'm sure that I'm not going to touch so many items, but some of that I remember. In reference to this roof is something that they mentioned before. It's a condition. We didn't change anything in these plans because we were waiting for this meeting and see what is. Then I think that is quite reasonable. In reference to the back in here, yes, they asked us to cut this window to this level to be able to be like 5 feet from the finished floor of the second story. These two windows just light up and vent the bathroom. 5 feet have to be peeking to be able to peek outside. As you can see, we don't have no opening over this neighbor over this side. This balcony that the lady referred is really pointing to the street. This balcony is exactly in here. Her house is in here. But I don't see how nobody can see a balcony that is recessing this structure. We did it on purpose because we know. Then this balcony is just looking over here or looking over here. It's not looking over any of the neighbors. In reference to windows, we don't have windows over this neighbor. We have some windows that are the stairs and the kids' bedroom. If I go over here, I don't know where I'm here.
To your right?
Yes.
The one to the right there?
Excuse me?
That one? Is it the side you're looking at, the elevation? The lower
Yeah,
one?
well, this one is over the
Right.
street.
The other
And then
side?
the other side, where am I?
Right
Here.
there.
Those are the two windows from the stairs, and those are the two windows for the children's bedroom. And then this is 5 feet below, and next to it is one-story house over this lady who is in Korea, that, by the way, she was aware of this, and she was so aware that she was present in the meeting before. And she even presented a letter to that issue. We located, as you can see, this is this L. You can see that this is practically a triangle. We located, the house is existing in this condition. We fill the space in between, the garage is farther in here. We move we're removing and demolish a perfectly good garage to the front, and we connected here the existing house with this garage, and in the middle of this area we added 770 something, I don't remember, square foot for 2 bedroom and 2 bath. In top of all this, we are proposing to create here a retaining wall to be able to, the couple to have a minimum outside space that if it's not, they wouldn't have it anywhere because there is no other place to be, and this is the driveway and the access to the garage. In reference to this easement, we have surveyed, as I said, this property legally. We don't have notion of any easement. And if it's even there is a section in the code, if I'm not wrong, that easements are not to be deducted for the FAR of a lot. Still, I'm not so sure. We don't have shown in our survey, maybe it could be the survey mistake, it's something that I need to find out, if this is an easement. At this point, we have fences in here, the client has a wood fence in here, and in the middle is nothing, it's just trees and brushes and rocks. Then the idea is we are going to remove the temporary wood fence. In that location, we'll put a retaining wall in here. We are going to clean up this area. We are not building in that area at all. And in that way, we were able, with tremendous amount of money and effort, to make a house that is livable for this couple. The owners will come soon. They will explain about the family. We don't consider this is mansionization. For one point. Another point, we consider, and again, the project that this, I wish this sheet would be higher, but if you look at the house here, 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 and here, and you look at the street, practically this is in the middle of that circle. We try to stay as far as possible from everybody around and still keep a distance for the street. To minimize there it is, thank you, Chief. To minimize the idea of the volume to the neighbors, the idea of the volume to the street, the idea of the volume. Here it is. It's this square in the middle of all this space.
Okay.
And that's, I think that's all that I can say, unless you have a question.
Does anyone have any questions while she's up there?
I still am a little confused on this elevation.
Okay.
From your description here, the house to the east, this house,
To the east.
this house, you're saying is higher?
No, lower.
It's lower.
Yeah.
Okay. I misunderstood you
Absolutely.
then.
And this house is higher than this.
But
Because the whole street goes like this, and you can have, we have a streetscape over here.
So the
and we have the
street,
streetscape over here.
the elevation of the street is from west to east?
West to east and north to south.
Right.
so on
Which is
that, sorry.
because I was under the impression they were coming together at Boston and in Santa Clara.
At
which
one
would
point
make
they
that house
come,
taller.
because when you come with a car, you are able to maneuver. But doesn't mean that this street is not like this, and this street is not like this. So of course, in the center, there is some kind of,
No, that's not my concern. My concern is how does the house next to you fit against the side of this two-story? And that was what I was trying to figure out. If the house to the east is lower, it's maybe much higher to see this large wall to it. If it was higher than your house, it might be a little bit less of an issue.
Well, where is that second-story addition in relation to that house? It's pretty far away.
very far, well, sorry, I lost my sight. But I still, from the edge of this heap, that's this edge of this heap, of course, this is the top of the roof. This is the level of the heap. Okay, here it is. This is the addition. This is the property line to our property, and 5, 6, or 7 more feet here is where this existing structure start. When I mean my addition is here, and the other house is down here. We are at 25. Here it is. From the edge, I'm at 25. And at that level, I think I am, sorry again, 25.6 is to the top, and I got 17.7. Because this is the slope that mimics the existing slope of the house. Then if I get this, and I do this, or I get it flat, or I do this, you will be very critical, I imagine, about the style of the house, the continuation of the feeling, the architecture of the neighborhood. Any other questions?
Can you, do you have any detail of the window, of the way you're treating the windows?
I don't have a detail of the window, but I'm glad that you touched the window. 60% of the windows that they are going to be used in this structure are existing. They were changed maybe a couple of years ago, I don't know. They are 60% are existing. The one that they don't fall in place of where we need it, we are removing and reinstall it. But those are 2 or 3. All the rest are existing and in place. In reference to the detail, unfortunately, I have it.
Well, if we have, staff must have photos of the house, and we can see. Maybe she can show us.
Yeah,
the
well,
window.
here's one, but it's the bay window that looks like it's going.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should have the photo survey that shows more of the house. Maybe you can show us which window you're referring to that's going to be remaining.
Can I ask you a couple questions while they work on that? Can we just go over a little bit of on the north side, it looks like there's a remaining portion of the first floor that's going to stay, right? Family room? The
Yes.
setback, as it exists now to the property line, is 17.7, right? That's remaining, is that?
Yes, this is what it is, and if this
Okay.
number is 17.7, I am not even, but this is what exactly
Okay,
it
that's
is.
what it's, okay.
That's
And on
what
the
it is.
second floor, how far is that from the property line?
Okay. It's from here to, it's here. If you, it's here. It's too dark, 20. I know that from here to here, this one is 17 and 5 is 20 to the property line, because the second story, this is the first story, the second story overhanging here.
Okay, and what was that number again?
is 5 feet more than 17, is 23.
Fine, okay. So 22, 23 feet then?
Yeah. Over 17, of course, 15 required.
So 24, 25 feet from the back setback, okay. On the east side, there's a 7'7" setback, and that's remaining.
Yes.
Okay. What is the distance from there to the second floor, face of the second floor?
It's this one, and I have to go to a plan because it's too far. The second floor is here, and this
To the property line,
So
right?
the property line is here. I don't have any scale and nothing. Oh, there is the existing house, but the distance from here to the existing house, oh, no, from the addition. I don't have it here. I don't know how to get
John, this one without,
Let's just guesstimate.
yeah, it's not quite,
this.
right, it's this one.
We can bring out a scale if you'd like.
25 from
My life for a
this
scale,
edge, from this edge.
It's about 18, 19 feet.
7.
Yeah,
that's about 25.
it could be 25
I
to
got
the
10 here
property
and
line.
7 here.
No, he was saying 25 to the structure.
Yeah, well, I was just wondering.
No,
No,
to the property line?
from this.
From the property line to the second
18
story,
and
maybe it's
25.
25.
I'm guessing about 18, 19 from the scale. Is that seems fine, right?
Ah, there you
20
go.
to 25.
Oh, thank you.
He's an architect, he doesn't need a scale.
Are you removing the clerestory windows? Is that the
Excuse me?
house? This is the house subject
Yes,
property?
I do.
You're removing the clerestory
Yes.
windows? Why is that?
Practical reasons and maybe style reasons. Practical reason, the client this is the kids' room. It's very hard to get it dark. They have plenty of glass, more glass that they wouldn't need, and they feel that, they didn't want to have those windows. They didn't need to have them.
So that's in here, right?
So this is getting replastered?
Yeah, these sections are going to be siding, and this is going to be all smooth plaster. The whole
you're
house will be
replastering all
smooth
of
plaster. There will be some plaster and smooth the whole house.
Any other questions, the architect? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Beverly Ettinger, please. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I need to go to the homeowners, the owners. If you can please state your name for the record.
Hello, I'm Ranjini Manor, and this is my husband Ganesh Manor. And this is about the property 3761 Santa Carlotta. We've lived in Glendale for over 8 years now, and we consider it our home. I've even had the privilege of substitute teaching for Glendale Unified School District. And by no means is this project to mansionize or any such thing. We've just, as you can see, I have another one coming, and it's simply an issue of space for our son, who's 3.5, and this is number 2, and we would just like a reasonable sized backyard for our children to play in, and possibly a modest 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom upstairs so that, our son can have some room to sleep and play in. And we're adding just over 700 square feet, and by no means do we intend to make this extravagant in any way. It's just merely something that would help us live more comfortably with the space that it would give us.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Beverly Ettinger.
My name's Beverly Ettinger. I'm a neighbor, and I've come just to comment. I wasn't able to attend the first meeting, but I did see it on cable the next day. A couple of things. I oppose the project as it is. I think it's out of scale. The applicant just stated they were planning to only add about 700 square feet. I was under the impression that it was quite a bit more than that, according to the plans. And I've studied the plans for weeks, and we've looked them over. Another point was that being out of scale, it is a modest neighborhood, like the appellant said. Everything's one story, modest neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood. It's a mid-century modern neighborhood. A lot of us bought into that neighborhood because we like that style. And we'd like to see that style remain true. I'd also like to comment that Mrs. Kim is not here today. She attended the first meeting, and she lives on Paraiso Way. Her property abuts up to the back of the applicant, and so her backyard would be affected by this in her opinion, in a devastating way. She came to the last meeting and she spoke with a translator, and I just know that she's devastated about it, and she was not able to attend this meeting today to express it again. I think she feels like her privacy has been ignored, and that issue, it shouldn't be ignored. So to do a project where one person gains and several other people lose, I think has to be seriously considered. And the monetary value of people who have view properties, their house values surely will be affected by this if they lose their view. I know that there is not a view ordinance according to the last design review board, and I understand that, but you can't make an ordinance to cover every single contingency. You do have to look at it on an individual basis and try to make the best decision. I just see that some of my neighbors are not happy with the proposed plan, and after looking at the plans myself, I can see why. So I'm here to support the opposition viewpoint.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you for coming. And just to clarify, according to the staff report, they're adding 442 square feet on the first floor and 780 square feet on the second floor. Okay. Tom Ettinger.
Good afternoon. My name's Tom Ettinger, and husband of Beverly, and we actually live 2 houses north of the proposed project. I'm a professional engineer and a licensed contractor. I would second Mrs. Foster's request to have more drawings done, especially to her property as the present property and new addition relates to her property. I mean, my view is that it is going to impact her view quite a bit. Secondly, the project, I think, is too large. We have one other project that's that large, about 4 houses down and away from the present project. First of all, it's not a mid-century modern home, and secondly, the project isn't on a corner, and the addition was done on the back, and it's not that visible. You really can't see it all that well. So I think that this project, though, because it's on the corner, its scale is awful big. It's going to be very prominent from both Santa Colada and Boston Avenues. Thirdly, the project has done three things. One, it's taken the garage that's sort of back in the property and has moved it forward 9 feet to make it more prominent. Secondly, it's taken the garage and the house and have taken the area up in between now with house, and so that gets rid of the broken up view and the view to the little hillside in the back that's foliated. And 3, it's added the second floor. The second floor, and you can't see it in that rendering, but because it was a hazy day, but those are, you can see the San Gabriel's back there, but with that second story, it almost takes away that view completely. I would say that these 3 things, 1 or 2 of them okay, but all 3 of them make quite a large impact. Number 4, the 2 houses to the north, and Mrs. Kim's house and Mrs. Foster's house, have views to the Verdugo Mountains right now. You can see them. There's no question about that. The open space element of the Glendale City General Plan says about the Verdugo Hills or mountains that they're a major physiogeographical feature, okay? And it goes on to say that these mountain ranges provide a dramatic scenic backdrop, okay? And that's what they've got. The obstruction of this view will negatively impact their property. Again, going to the city plan, and I took this out of the draft plan, but it's in the housing element. One of the goals of the general plan is that it says, I quote, "A city with high-quality residential neighborhoods that are attractive and well-designed." And there are a number of policies that are under that will try to put that into place. Policies that address scale and houses fitting into the neighborhood. It's my opinion that the view is going to be blocked, that no matter what the virtues of the project property is, the fact that it impacts the two other properties negatively tells me that the project cannot be termed high quality, and therefore it does not conform to the general plan. Number 5 is that the view from the new house or the new addition down to the properties to the north, their privacy is now going to be violated. And again, it's another point to the project not conforming to the general plan. So in conclusion, I think that additional drawings need to be done. The project should be redesigned. I think that there's possibility that that you could put a second addition on, maybe lower it a little bit, and maybe put it further to the back. But right now, it's pushed to the front, and it's very visible. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Now the applicant has a chance to respond. So either Ms. Barbieri or the homeowners. You have 5 minutes.
I think 5 minutes is too much. I really would like, or I would prefer, it would be okay with you if you would ask me question, because I really don't know what else to say.
Okay. Does anybody have any
I can clarify
questions?
issues, but I don't know what else could I.
I could ask you a question. One of the comments that were made was regarding making the second floor simpler or simplified. Was that something that you considered?
Yeah, this is what we are going to be doing, that and
Okay.
the bathroom. Like I said, we didn't do it.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about what you had in mind and what you were thinking?
I have in mind, and I thought it was kind of nice to emphasize a little bit that vertical volume.
Mhm.
Some people can see it like me, some people cannot see it. I don't think it's such an issue in the architectural style of the property that could say it's a make it or breaker. Seems that the design review has a view different than my view. And as long as it's not something that it would break the projects, I agree with it. The same with the windows in the back. I was planning to put some kind of special glass, but I can understand that maybe during the night somebody turn a light and it can be a shadow. I understand that somebody would like to have a glass of 5 feet, where I can imagine somebody only have to climb and peek outside to see. And those two things that design review mentioned, I don't have no issue with it. It's something
So
that
those
we
are things
plan
that you
to.
would work on if you...
Oh, yeah, it's a very, very little.
Okay.
Doesn't change the structure, doesn't change the way that it look, only that different elevation. I think you explained it well. Somebody maybe.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Foster? And you also have 5 minutes.
I wasn't able to read the letter from Sandra Shields, but you guys have it, so if you guys want to go ahead and review it before you close. I want to speak to the Korean lady was here, that was at the last design review board. It was not the easterly neighbor, it was my easterly neighbor, and she opposed the project. I also, just in general, I feel like what I hear as a neighbor affected by this project is that, oh, it's too difficult, oh, I don't have it, oh, I don't know. This is really going to impact my home. I work really hard. I've invested in Glendale. This is my second home that I've purchased in the city. I am a stickler for original design and historical values. My last home was a 1913 Craftsman home, which I restored to its original thing. So I'm a very unhappy neighbor. And I realize that this is a process, but to have someone so unprepared in their presentation and unable to answer so many questions makes me, as a homeowner to the rear, very, very concerned and very upset. None of the things that we discussed last time were taken into consideration. That really upsets me. The whole house has become overgrown, and it seems almost like they're purposely letting the foliage grow so you can't see the impact that this will have. You can't even walk down the sidewalk anymore because it's so overgrown with brush. I have to point out that these trees are evergreen, as you could see in my photo. For 6 months of the year, it's wide open space, and I will look at the back of the stucco box every day, and it makes me very, very unhappy. And unfortunately, we live in a culture where we have to be careful of people that can peek through windows. It's true. I'm sorry that it's a reality today. I have an 11-year-old daughter, and that someone that can look through a window, if it's 5 feet, 3 feet, 2 feet, I personally don't care. If they can look through their window and look into my living and kitchen space, it's an effect on my privacy, my livelihood, and the safety of my child. And the slope on Santa Carlotta is a very gradual slope, and it's stacked up a hill. So I run on that. It's not hard. It's a very gradual slope. The slope going up Boston we're going up the mountain. So there's a little bit of a difference. I really encourage everyone to visit the site. No one's come to my house. No one's asked me my questions. No one's come in my backyard and seen how this is going to affect my property. And that is a neighbor in this neighborhood, and someone that's involved, and someone that's in the PTA, and someone that does all this thing to contribute to our community really just makes me angry, and I think it's unfair. I have a really big problem with vinyl windows. I don't put them in my houses, and I don't want to look at them out my living room. I have huge windows. So stucco boxes with vinyl windows do not make me happy. And I think anyone on the design review board, if they had to look at this day in and day out, wouldn't make you guys happy either, because we love our homes here in Glendale. We love our schools. We love our neighborhood. And there is an easement back there, and it's a sewer easement, so you can verify that. And if an easement isn't enough, or a back trenching area, maybe the FAR ratio should be adjusted due to slope, because it definitely is on a hill. So I'm sure if I was on a board, I'd take that into consideration, because if your house is on a hill, some parts will require more to build, and I'd like you guys to take that into consideration. I thank you all for your time today, and I'm going to close.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, did you have a question?
Can I ask questions
Yes.
from the architect?
Okay, yeah, we'll bring the architect back up. Ms. Barbieri?
Yeah, I was wondering, have you tried a single-story plan on this site for the...
We, in reality, when we started this project, I think it's going to be almost a year, we look around, but you don't have to take too long to see mathematically what do you have, what is the area that you can build, what is the area that you have, and you can realize that there is no way that you can add this to the first floor and have the most meaningful space to be outside. It's like building an apartment building.
Do you know if the owners considered that when they were buying this lot, or they came up with the idea later?
I think you will have to ask them, because I didn't know them at that time.
No, I mean by
just
your
laid it in the
conversation.
picture.
Yeah.
If they have in mind that when they bought the house 8 years ago or 7, I won't be able to answer, because I didn't even know them at that time.
And I asked you.
No, with all due respect, I'm not sure if it's going to be really applicable applicable to the discussion, whether they considered that or not, but I am happy to bring them up if you'd
I
like.
just know, I have another question from the owners probably then.
Okay, we can, when
Don't let me.
Yeah.
yeah. So are you
Thank
done
you.
with?
Thank you.
Okay.
To just ask the same question, did you consider buying this lot that you'll have to build for future, and how would you do that?
When we bought the house, we just got married 8 years ago, and we saw the backyard. We obviously knew we needed to grow as a family. It was not planned as to, what size of the house needed to be at that point. We were excited because we were living in an apartment in Glendale, and we were excited to, come and get a house that at that time fit our budget, and we had a decent backyard. But we always knew we wanted a kid, and we have a son now, 3.5 years old, and we were hoping to at least maintain the backyard that we have today. That was the plan.
And my next question, the last question, is that, do you have any plans for the yard on the north side, future plans? The yard that's the backyard on the north side? Because I remember someone from last time mentioning that you have some plans for future on this side of the house.
We have only the backyard is only, it's on the north side. So, we plan to have a retaining wall there.
So it's a site issue?
Yeah, which is already there.
Okay.
So we don't have a yard on this side, or in the front is a driveway. So the only place our son can play is the backyard.
Actually, I believe their landscape plans posted.
So there are only landscape, but plans meant that there are going to be some landscape.
Future change plans, is that what you were asking the...
No, any plans. I just heard plans, meaning ideas, and I don't know.
We got the landscape plan also done and submitted as part of this.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question for you. Did you replace the windows with vinyl, or was that done before you purchased them?
When we first came, the vinyl windows cracked. There was vinyl windows, aluminum windows, and one of the aluminum window on the top cracked fully. Right. And it would vibrate when a vehicle comes and stops, and it's a stop sign there. Mm-hmm. When it stopped, it would vibrate. And we had to replace, and then we had a person come over, and they replaced all the windows.
They replaced it all with vinyl. Do you know at that time that was done under a permit, or was... I don't know what, if vinyl window issue, you've heard that there's an issue with vinyl windows. I'm just kind of wondering if at the time that the city permitted vinyl windows for that,
when we just bought, this was just when we bought the house, and the guy came over, he had approved contract, California Energy Company, and he said this is as per the city code, and it will permit, it will conserve energy, and we had leakage. And
they're dual pane, or they?
They are.
Yeah.
And we had to turn in forms about the California Energy and how it saves us our power bills and all that.
And it's got the gas.
Yeah, the dual pane. Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Mr. Foy looks like he has...
Let me close the public hearing, and then we can take comments from staff.
I just want to emphasize that the decision before the board is a project that's presented to you today, not what their possible future plans might or might not be, or really what they had in mind 8 years ago.
Let me ask staff to, maybe if you have any comments about the FAR issue and how it would relate or not relate to any part of the lot that's not usable.
Yeah, the floor area ratio is calculated on the entire area of the lot. We do not make, the code does not allow us to make any judgments about usability or not.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, now, I'm open to whoever would like to go first. If you might want to hear from one of the our member who was here last time or not, I'll leave it up to the board to decide.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you make your comments first if you're ready.
I think we have a very short time left, as usual, so I'll make my comments very short. I think one of the points that were made in terms of privacy and an intrusion. I think it was more of a privacy issue and view deprivation issue. I think by putting the private parts of the house, meaning the bathrooms and the closets, facing someone's living room, mainly the bathrooms, to me, I take it as an intrusion. I don't think that you need to put a living room facing someone else's living room to call it an intrusion. I think it all depends how you interpret it, because if I'm sitting in my living room one day and I have the pleasure of being able to look out, and this is not referring to the view per se, but then our neighbors decide to give us their bathroom, and with bathroom comes, I think the bathrooms, by having their solid surfaces, they're all, there's no sort of sound absorptive surfaces, so every sound that you slam doors, it comes directly back to your living room, and the bathroom looking into my living room is not what I would consider that is not an intrusion. I think I interpret that as an intrusion, which if I had my living room, I wouldn't want someone's bathroom. In other words, I would have designed my house differently if the bathroom was sitting in front of me. So I would have taken my view or the center of attention of this room and put it someplace else. It could be maybe 20 feet away, 25 feet away, 30 feet away, even if it's 50 feet or 60 feet away. I think it still remains a bathroom and intrudes into my living room. I think I'm just trying to mention the larger issues. In reference to the point about the top plate being 7.6 rather than 8, I think 6 inches is not what we're talking about here. Even if it's 1 foot or 2 feet, it's not an issue. The issue here is a matter of intrusion, and when we ask the question about, I think it's a very simple solution, and there are a lot of good considerations. But at the end of the day, when the issue of the height is something that we talk about here and becomes something to deal with the surrounding neighbors, expressing the verticality of the second or the central sort of tower piece is something that you wouldn't want to do. From my perspective, I remain with some hesitance in terms of thinking that this second floor belongs to this neighborhood, because at that time when I spoke about this issue, my problem was that I had a personal sort of experience having such a second story in front of my living room. But then the issue of the view deprivation not being as part of our guidelines came up, and I felt that maybe I have no grounds to consider that. But the point is that after I went back again and looked at the neighborhood, I think a second floor being added in such a way becomes basically a non-compatible addition. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Who would like to go next?
I'll jump in. I think I'm the only, I don't know if you're an architect or not. You're not. Oh, well, there's two of us who are not architects on the panel. I'm a lay citizen. I was appointed, I thought, maybe to bring a little different point of view. This is a difficult project, and I watched the board deliberate it last time, and I could see that with that group. When you have a project that every neighbor around it is opposed to it, there's a problem. And I don't quite know, I was kind of hoping to hear from the architect that, they tried 17 different ways to fit it in here, and I didn't hear that. I think at this point, I would feel that I would be opposed to it because it is not compatible with the neighborhood. Now, I'm not opposed to a second story, and maybe there's a way, and I looked at my esteemed colleagues who are architects to suggest how to fit that second story into the project. I don't discount the applicant and their issue. I mean, I empathize with them, but all the neighbors are having an issue with the project, and so I think just from that standpoint, my last note is, and God, I apologize to you also, the applicant or the project owner. I'm crazy about vinyl windows, and if there's a way to work around vinyl windows.
You love them.
Oh, I love them in Burbank, but I live in Glendale, And I just to me, in a neighborhood where vinyl windows are, not in the style, it's tough, and it's unfortunate, that they've gone through an issue of having their windows replaced. I mean, it's like you can buy 60-gallon trash cans down at Home Depot, but you can't put them out in Glendale, that's the story of being in Glendale, I guess. At any rate, I'm done.
Thank you. No, it's always a tough issue. You're right. I mean, there is something to be said for working with the neighbors and at a certain point coming to a design review or meeting, and you do have all these neighbors that are opposing the project. I mean, I guess looking at it on a pure architectural basis, if you're not opposed to a second floor, I don't see where else you could put the second floor to make it work in this site, because it is a corner lot, with two streets. One of the comments that was made by Sir Thomas, I think he was saying that, the second story is too far up. It needs to be tucked back into more, but then that would impact the neighbors in the back more, because then you have the house closer to the neighbors in the back. And so there's sort of this, well, I can move it here, I can move it there, but where is the perfect place? And it's pretty close to where it can only work, I guess, either way. I mean, if we look at it, I mean, it makes sense that way, right? I mean, it's not a huge addition in the fact that it's, when you talk about, mansionization and all that, and some of the other lots, I mean, we're talking 5,000-6,000 square foot houses that are going in, two full heights, going up. And so we have to be careful when we use that word too. I know that, the word is pretty loaded, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, is that, and when I looked at the setbacks, on the north side where the three neighbors are, there's an existing setback of 17.6 to the first story. They're allowing 25 feet to the second story portion of it, and that's just to the property line. And so, taking into account the setback that's behind that, I mean, the houses are 50 feet away from the second floor addition. I think the house that might be most impacted would be the one on the east, with the 7'7", but then they're also setting it back further into the site and going, 18, 19 feet from the property line. And then going back to the north, because of I think it was like a 8 feet, 9 foot grade change between this house and the houses that are sitting right above it, you don't get the full impact of the two-story house. If you look at it from the site, on some of the sections, if you were looking out, I think from this, and I was trying to estimate, I was trying to see, what you would see looking out your window. Well, I mean, the addition is basically going to go on this corner here, because you're looking at it on this side, the street's going this way. And if you take the line of, if you're standing at your house looking, I mean, because the only thing you can see is anything above the fence. If you look straight out, you're looking at a face of the building of about 8 feet at the most. And I mean, you're looking at the side of the house kind of, but you also have sort of the pitch of the roof. And if you look at this picture, I mean, it looks like your views or your great views are that way, where your mountains are. I mean, there's a little bit of mountains here, but I mean, it's not like the house is going to be, taking up your whole backyard, looking into it. And so, I mean, I think anything going there, you would say, I don't want to see it. And so there has to be some compromise, though, because they do have the right to build in their lots according to the guidelines that we have set, that were set in Glendale. And so, we have to kind of weigh those things, and looking at the design of it, I think it's definitely going to be an improvement to the house and what's there, sort of the mismatched siding that's there, and, architecturally, you might not agree with the continuation of the mid-century modern and taking it full board, but I think the design has been, has been done to improve the property, and taking into account all the setbacks and everything, I think it's the best location for the second floor, and I would probably support the project as it was designed, with the condition that was earlier done in the earlier meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Aliano?
Yes, thank you. I have to say, before I get into the second story issue, that having looked at the drawings and visited the site, I feel that what's been done here has been done in a sensitive way in terms of the way the architecture is treated. I think the existing house, people are calling it mid-century, they're calling all kinds of names, but it's actually a mishmash. There's nothing there that I could see that could be any distinct style. I mean, especially if you look at the street elevation, there's these higher windows that you mentioned earlier that are being eliminated, and then there's lower windows. They're all misaligned, so there's no real sense of what that is. I mean, I don't see the clarity in the style. I actually see more clarity here than in what's existing, because what they've done, they've actually unified everything by replastering, by adding some siding. Also, the windows are being treated differently. This is definitely a different style of house, but it's more unified than what's there. And one cannot say that all the houses there are mid-century, especially if you look at the neighbor to the east. I mean, it's a typical tract home style of house. There's nothing distinct about the style of that house. So, I don't see what the big issue is with trying to preserve what's there. I think what's there is actually being improved upon by doing all these different things. So having said that, I have to say that I'm pleased with that. I do have to agree with the neighbors that if you're going to go this far and trying to, and this is an appeal to the owners more than anything, because you're the one that has to pay for it, is that if you're going to go this far, I would definitely try to look at not using vinyl windows, because everything is so well unified that when you get, and then you have to look at this vinyl window, it doesn't make any sense, because now you're trying to use something really cheap to try to make it work into something that's fairly well articulated. So I would strongly encourage you to rip out what's there, and the fact that 60% of the windows are there and you're reusing them, the windows for this house might cost you, I don't know, $15,000, $20,000, but, there's a lot of good windows out there. There's if you can't afford the metal clad wood, I mean, there's something in between. There's the vinyl, not the vinyl, but the fiberglass, which are wood, but the skin is fiberglass, which is paintable. So you'll be able to actually paint them and make it integrated into that. With the vinyl, you can't do that. Vinyl is what it is, and it's always going to look like vinyl. There's a window, I think, facing the driveway right now, which is a box window that has the muttons. I mean, that's really not mid-century. That's just, I don't know what I would call it, but it's not mid-century, okay? So I would try to at least make that window, improve the quality of that window in terms of its design. Having said that, I want to talk about the more sensitive aspect of the project, which is the height and the second story. When I was there, I could barely see the house, and I think maybe that has to do with the vegetation. But there's a lot of tall trees, a lot of shrubs, especially in Boston. There's full of oleanders that you can't even see through. The way it's situated, I mean, the fact that all these trees are covering, I'm not trying to say that you should use vegetation to cover up bad work. I'm just saying is that when you go there and you try to visualize what's going to happen there with this addition, it won't be that much different than what's there right now because of the vegetation. The height of the vegetation, especially in the middle of where the addition is approximately about the same height of the addition. So I was trying to squint as I was looking at it and figure out what would this be. And I mean, the fortunate thing about this project, to some extent, is that the applicant has managed to put this addition right in the middle of, where the garage and the main house converge. So I think I would have a really, really serious problem if this addition was right along the east edge of the main house, which would be, say they were adding a second story right here. That would be a totally different story, because the sight lines are quite different. I mean, if you look at this, and I was sketching earlier, the property next door is probably somewhere here, and you are about 4 feet lower. In terms of sideline, the way these slope, the slopes are shown here, and actually how they are right now, without this, is that your sideline tend to move at an angle. You're not really, you don't have a height that your view is actually being blocked. It's actually quite gradual, and so there's sort of this natural. But if the addition were here, it would be a different story, because now this piece will become that big. You see, it's quite different, because now your plate, this corner will come out here. You have a totally different impact on the neighbor. And so from that perspective, this neighbor actually gains from this type of addition rather than addition that's right on the top of the existing building. I think the one that's more of a problem is actually these two properties here, because they are going to be able to see that, which is really unfortunate that you have that, but at the same time, I have a really difficult time denying an applicant, to do a second-story addition, because they have nowhere else to go. They can't have this kind of square footage down below, because it's just not possible. You just have to look at the site and see that you take up all of that. Plus, you have a landscape issue, you have percentage of landscape. It's just doesn't seem doable. So a second story, seems to be the more reasonable way to go. And so, but I do have issues with that. I mean, that these neighbors have to look at that. But we see that all the time, and unfortunately, that's just part of the reality. I mean, we live in a city, and we have to get adjusted to living with other people that have structures that are slightly higher. As long, if this were a complete massive two-story, I would say absolutely not. Because now you can't see through this building anymore. Now you have complete blockage of what's beyond. But this actually, in terms of the footprint of this building, of this addition, is fairly small in comparison to the rest of the house. So you'll be able to actually see right through. And you will see this house, there's no question about it. You will probably see that much of it from the north side. It's not ideal. I would not want that either. But if I live to the north, I suppose I will probably accept it. I mean, I accept my neighbors. They have a two-story house, and I didn't want to object them because they had a right to build a two-story house. So they look into my yard. I didn't object to that, and the rationale for me for that is that this is not an insensitive addition. If it were, I would be the first one to claim that. So I'm leaning towards supporting the project for those reasons. I don't see how I could vote against it, given what I've just said. But I'd like to reiterate that I am sensitive about the windows, and I think that something can be easily done and fixed. I also would like to recommend that the same recommendations that were given at the last meeting with the TRB2 regarding this roof being removed and somehow remove the trellis so that this may become part of the roof for this structure, and then on this part of the gable, you end up with an open structure that gives you the trellis. I think that's what was intended, right? Because this trellis is probably a little bit out of character because it has more of a different type of look than what's already there. I'm not quite sure what the railing is, but again, I would probably look at that, and maybe the planner, I guess, is here. If that is any kind of pipe railing or anything like that, I'll probably reconsider that and do something a little bit more domestic, less commercial. But I don't know what that is yet. That's all right. Noting that because I like the staff to follow up on that. But I want to close with that. I'd like to hear what Friedman has to say.
Me too. I feel like the tie-breaking vote. It's a very uncomfortable kind of position to be in. I think, first of all, that in this kind of case, that there really is no bad guy. I mean, everybody that makes their arguments all have good arguments. All of the arguments are correct from their perspective. I don't think anyone's being a bad neighbor. I don't think anybody's being unreasonable at all. And that's not always the case with these hearings, but I think it's the case here. I certainly sympathize with both the appellant and the applicant, which is why it's a tough decision, and I think everyone on the board has made very good points, too. In terms of, I'll just go through things in not really any order. One thing that one of my fellow board members mentioned was that you have a problem if all of the neighbors object. I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think we've seen cases in the past where people have objected, and really when it was built, I felt like, I felt comfortable that the board had made the correct decision in improving things. So to me, it's not, a popularity contest. It's not how many people come up. I think we really have to look at, what's in front of us as much as anything. In other words, I think that we listen to testimony for people to convince us, but we don't count up the people that are in opposition and weigh them against people that are in support, that kind of thing. I think it's difficult because it is one of these neighborhoods where it's primarily single-story. The houses are modest size. There is a kind of continuity in terms of the way that the houses are stacked along the hill. It's a neighborhood that maybe once had a CCNR, doesn't anymore. Maybe they did or didn't anticipate, this kinds of changes over time, but it's always difficult to come in and be the first one who wants to put a second floor on in this kind of situation. I think that given that, if you're going to do a second floor here, I think they actually have gone a long way in trying to put the second floor in a way that would reduce its impact. There's no way to completely get rid of that impact, but there are a lot of applicants that would have come in wanting to put a second floor on the entire house, and they didn't do that. And because of the shape of their lot, I agree. I don't know where else they would put their addition. I just don't know if they have the space and given setbacks, and it's always a trade-off with outdoor space. Do you really want to cover the entire lot with house, or as much as you can cover, just not to have a second floor? I don't think story polling is unreasonable in this situation. I think that I'm sorry that we maybe didn't require that before, because maybe that would have made people feel more comfortable or less comfortable. It might have given us a little bit more information. Or it may not have. I do have a bit of, I agree that there's a mishmash now, but I think that there are enough of the holdovers of the original mid-century architecture in terms of how it relates to enough of the surrounding houses that I have a bit of a concern with removing the Clerestory window, which I didn't notice was happening in the last time around, but I notice it now because enough the other houses have that. I just wondered why not do a Clerestory on the second floor and at least get some of that transparency there. Maybe that would help a little bit with this, if you could actually kind of see through it. It was just a thought. I don't really have a lot to add. If we do pass it, I would agree to the requirement of using a higher class of windows. Definitely no divided lights, something that was more in keeping with a more streamlined look. I would like to know what other people think about the Clerestory windows being removed. I think it's a character-defining feature, and removing it, I think, is maybe not, the best thing for the house. If people would support story polling before we make a decision, continuing it in story poll, I would support that as well. It might be a prudent step just to make, to give us that information to say definitely it's not that huge of an impact. We could story poll it, maybe go to the neighbors' houses.
I think probably that would be a good thing to do, just for both sides to realize the impact.
It doesn't come back to us.
No, we would just continue it. We wouldn't close. We wouldn't vote.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
We would vote to continue
it with that.
We would story poll it. Hopefully, the appellant would allow us to come to their house, maybe to the neighbors' houses. We could look at it from that vantage point. I'm not sure if it would change anybody's mind, even if it was very obtrusive, but so I don't know if it's really the right move for us, but it's a thought. It's something we could do, and it would be my hope if we did that they would put that up, and then everyone would say, oh, that's okay, but I doubt that would happen.
I would actually be opposed to the story polls, just because, they follow the rules up to this point and have gone through all the hoops that we've put them through. we're to this point where now we can make a decision, and to throw this huge thing at them again, I think it's unfair to the applicant of the original house addition.
Could I make a suggestion maybe, because maybe we can, because it sounds like what Ms. Friedman is saying is that the story polling could deflate some of the tension, because people, the neighbors that is, think that this is a huge impact. It may not be a huge impact once they see the story polling. So I would say maybe leave it up to the applicant. If they're willing to do it, then it would give your neighbors an opportunity to come to terms with it. It's up to you, but I agree. I don't think we need to force it and make it
I'd be okay with that.
But I would just leave it up to the applicant, see if you're willing to do it. But
Well, the only thing is we'd need to know in advance, because it would be a difference of whether we continued or whether we voted.
Well, could we ask?
Yeah,
could we
why
open the floor?
don't we allow the homeowners to come up, or Ms. Barbieri to come up and tell us your opinion about that?
First of all, I would like to know if the story polls can be retroactive requests, because in the last meeting that we have, you, I think, mentioned or somebody about the story polls and said this application was received and incomplete before the city council approved the story polls. Then I need some kind of answer if that legally can be requested.
I don't think we're requesting or demanding it. It was a request that would you consider it?
Right. We're leaving it up to you.
That was I was asking.
The board can request story polls if they deem it necessary.
Right, but we're saying, though, I would oppose the request. I'm just saying we leave it up to the applicant if they want to do it.
Right, I understand.
That would be a gesture to the neighborhood that they're, but
Great, we
it's up to
clarify
you.
that.
You can make that decision.
We had the feeling, and maybe we are right, we are wrong, normally, is that the story poll is not going to make really any difference. Mr. Sarifian has a situation personally with Second Story, but I mean, whatever is Second Story and whatever the polls show, I don't think is going to convince him. Am I right, sir? That the Second
I have
Story
my
is a
doubts
good
about
idea.
story polling
You
because
expressed this in the first meeting, you expressed your same concern in the second meeting. I realized that the situation doesn't have to do with the transparency of the windows or with the materials or with the height. I think we got to the point where yes to second stories or no to second stories. It doesn't matter what they are made of. Either would it be painting gold, it will be the same situation. Then why don't we all try to be less politically correct and tell the story as it is? This is 2 stories or not 2 stories? Because nobody has objected for any other reason. Then the story polls is not going to tell you more story that this is a 2-story. Then in reality, I think my clients expect from you honesty. If you don't want to approve the second story, don't. If you want to approve the second story, do. But let's don't dance around, ladies and gentlemen,
No, it's-
because
I think that means no.
it takes a long time for my clients or for any
let
client.
me
Because we are establishing a precedent. Second stories, if they are big, no because they were big. If they are small, well, no because it's small. Then if we are not going to be able to have second stories, maybe we should go all to city councils and decide with them, are view protections in this town or there are no view protections in this town? We all in this town, who lives in them like all of us, who work in them of all of us, we need to know in what direction to go. And it's not for this project. I think it's for all of us. We all deserve some clarifications in life.
Let me just say something that I asked a question and there was a clarification with regard to the fact that what we are looking at today, we should consider the project as it's presented today, and it's not something that was considered 8 years ago or something in that nature. The reason I asked that question was basically to bring up the issue that I haven't seen a single buyer when they buy the house and think that in future they're going to expand the family and consider, so how can we use this site and how can we expand? And sometime in the past, probably someone has considered, well, we'll add the second story. And we'll go the length, and we'll do all these things, and we'll hire an architect, and we'll go to the city board, and hopefully we'll push it through, and we'll get it done. But I think if there is a site of this sort, if I'm a buyer, I would bring an architect at the time of the buying and say, how would you add to this house? And then the architect will say probably the two-story, second story is the only way, and you'll say, well, I have 3 neighbors that will be looking into that second story, and I'll get their views. But you know what? Since I have the right to do it, I'll do it anyway. I think this is one of the things for future that buyers, whoever is listening to this, will consider that this is going to impact people's lives and their plans and their houses. Yes, if you go and read the code, and it will say, yeah, there's nothing here that says I can't add the second story. But the fact is that you'll be affecting people's houses that they bought with the hope that this will be kind of a neighborhood that the way I see it today, and I'm basing my decision of buying this house today based on what I see, and someone comes and says, you look at this site, the only logical way today is to add the second story. Sure.
Nothing agree with you more than 100%. But if I would like to have that security and life, I think we all will be great. I don't know if I buy a house today thinking what I'm going to do 10 years from now, because my experience is that during the process, my husband died and I had to move to an apartment. Then if you are so sure what is going to happen in your life 7 or 8 years from now, definitely they shouldn't buy that property.
No,
how you can do that?
Okay, I think, thank you very much.
Maybe couldn't get pregnant. Maybe the husband would.
Actually, can we ask about the windows?
Who knows?
They're willing to consider
I
an
think they
upgrade to
were.
the windows.
I think they said they were.
They
They
said they
nodded.
would, okay.
They nodded, right?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for.
Thank you.
Well, I will just say one thing in kind of in response or reaction to what you said. In terms of the city clarifying it, I think that actually that is what's happening, and that's why we're having these discussions. I think it's better to have these kinds of dialogues in this forum where it's more public than just always to expect the planning department to write a code that answers all the questions. So I think that these kinds of dialogues are healthy that way, and we do see it changing, and we do see us as a community coming to some understandings of what we do and don't want in our neighborhoods. And a lot of cities, most cities don't have that. So I think we're all, it's painful as the process is, we're part of that sort of living, study group that's making those decisions.
Should we make a motion?
Someone can certainly make a motion.
Make a motion to approve the project with the conditions that were stated in the previous meeting, and add the, windows and
Cell story. The cell story windows.
The Clerestory windows, did
Clerestory.
anybody have, I didn't hear any other comments from
But if there's any way that they could do it, I don't know that there are clear story there, but they're not well connected to the bottom window. Right now, the clear story is here, and there's a window that just flowed in there. So this looks like it was added on later. I'm not sure what happened.
I think it was.
I think that's why they've done all this, because there's no way to connect all these points. You can see on the picture that the
Here's the
clear story is somewhere here.
Yeah, these
There's
were
a
added.
little window just floating in there.
Were they? Oh, right, it was no window. The window's on this side.
I'm not sure. I mean, I
Clear story
Yeah,
was the
gotcha.
Which is a good
corner
design.
piece. Now the tower is will be probably in some kind of conflict.
Okay.
That's what.
There's also the board and batten on the other side and plaster on this side. I mean, that corner is actually quite weak the way it's. I would say if they can, then they would have to see it.
I think we could leave it up to
Right. I mean, if they could.
So we could include the improvement of the quality of the windows as a condition, and would you like us to specify to fiberglass or aluminum clad, or just state the condition as improve the quality of the windows
Other than a vinyl.
other than
Other than
vinyl. Okay.
Yeah, and then no divided lights, right?
And no divided lights.
Right.
Okay, we got that. And then as a consideration, to consider maintaining the Clerestory configuration.
Well, that will just leave it up to them in case they have a
Right.
change of heart. It doesn't
But if they
make them
do
anything.
keep that, I mean, I guess try to tie it into the rest of it, so it shows up somewhere else to...
In an integrated
Yeah.
manner. Okay, great.
Was there anything else?
Mr. Aliano's balcony railing, is that a?
Yes, to be sure that it's not an industrial...
Connected.
Balcony railing?
Yeah, I think that was actually also covered in the previous staff report.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a previous condition. And just to clarify, the window condition is for all the windows, so to replace the existing windows as well.
And then in terms of the simplifying the, that second floor, that front facade, is everybody on the same page? in
Yeah,
terms of
we have a
that?
clarity of that, and that's already a condition that will stand.
Okay, one last time, Ms. Barbieri, I'll open it. Come on up to the mic before you talk.
You need to speak into the mic.
The owners are asking me something I cannot answer in reference to the material of the windows. Are you all talking about wood windows, and that's
No,
it?
they gave them an option. It could be
Well,
the
that's what
the
they asked me, and I don't know what is the
There will
option.
be an option of fiberglass clad windows, aluminum windows, just not to use the vinyl clad windows. that
Vinyl
would-
clad, aluminum?
No,
No vinyl.
vinyl will not
No
be
vinyl
permitted.
clad and no aluminum.
No, you can use
Aluminum, you have all options on the table.
No
It's-
vinyl clad.
No vinyl and no divided lights.
Yeah, and
The question I couldn't do.
And then, a high-quality aluminum window. I mean, the staff, they have their list.
The best.
The best. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Can we have a roll call, please?
The project, it was motion by board member Yu to approve the project with previous condition as well as the condition that was...
Can the audience please hold it down, Mr. Insua?
Mr. Aliano seconded, and this is the roll call, board member...
Actually, would you also like to adopt the language of the record of decision as well?
At the same time with the same vote?
Well,
Include
it's...
that as part of your motion?
You need to approve that, adopt that.
reading it.
along with the-
And that, I think we carried over the language from the previous record of decision. If you all agree that that language is applicable to your decision today, we can just include that same language in the record of decision.
Why don't we make that then part, my suggestion would be to make that part of the
They're gonna read it.
motion,
Okay.
so that you're voting on both at the same time. Okay.
Sorry, what was that?
To include, as part of the
The draft
motion, the
language.
approval of the draft language of the
Record of
record of decision,
Can
which
we
the
hear
staff
that?
wrote. Why don't you go ahead and read it? quickly?
Shelley, would you like me to read it, or do you want to read it?
The building orientation and site planning remain similar to the existing situation. The new
yes.
second story steps back on 3 sides relative to the first floor and is located towards the back of the site away from both adjacent streets. Therefore, the upper story does not overpower adjacent homes and its impact on street is minimized. The building is nicely configured with well-designed details.
That's correct.
Okay. May I have a roll call, please?
Board member Aliano,
Yes.
board member Ellis,
No.
board member Yu,
Yes.
board member Zarifian,
No.
chairperson Friedman.
Yes.
Motion passes by 3-2. Thank you.
Is there any other staff?
Okay, just to remind everybody out there, there is a 7-day appeal period for this decision, and any appeal that would be filed would be heard by the city council.
And also to remind people, as we've seen again today, window replacements always require a building permit. Your window contractor will often not tell you this, but it's true in every city in California.
Thank you, Mr. Foy.
Okay, then we are adjourned.